This is my first video on my account, as well on YouTube as well as on Instagram. So today we want to talk first about my definition of imperialism, which is the left-communist and early Leninist definition. Imperialism is a concept that has had generally been both contested and polemical debates with Marxist theory, the orbit of which has typically been powerful capitalist states expanding outward. But I think from a early Leninist or left-communist standpoint, imperialism is not really just reducible to states being aggressive or whatever, or, I don't know, committing organized violence for territorial competition between great powers or formal possession of colonies. But in my opinion, it is also the ultimate development and fruition in the concrete of capitalist social relations under conditions of crisis and uneven development. I go one step further, which is also connected to what I said before, and define imperialism as the systemic and structural expanse of capitalist relations of production and capital accumulation across national frontiers. It is the mechanism through which monopoly, finance, and industrial capital come together to rule the world economy as one imperial power of exploitation. Whereas classical colonialism, imperialism is also a form of colonialism, by the way, but whereas classical colonialism included direct territorial conquest and formal political control, contemporary imperialism proceeds through a dense web of economic dependencies, neo-colonial arrangements, financialization, and transnational corporate power. Operating through the export of capital and the regulation of global markets, it subjects peripheral economies, so third world nations or whatever, to serve central capitalist locations, so stronger Western nations, more imperialist nations like the US, Netherlands, France, Britain, Germany. This worldwide integration has taken place behind a facade of voluntary cooperation among equals, but as I said, it is a facade. It is ultimately just, I would say, an hierarchical system of what I consider asymmetric exchange and wealth transfer from the peripheries of the centers that goes with a parallel social devastation. And this always happens. Imperialism will always lead to social devastation. Imperialism is to be understood as the crisis tendency of capitalism. What does that mean? For left communists, imperialism is not just a choice of policy, but a structural necessity due to the inherent contradictions of and within capitalism. Imperialist expropriation is both due to the basic requirement to expand and break external limits, so expanding into other nations, as well as having to deal with tendencies towards overproduction, falling rates of profit, and intensifying class struggles, which makes capital being accumulated and centralized more rapidly, so that they then seek new markets abroad, so from whence cheaper labor, etc., is acquired. Imperialism is capitalism trying to resolve its crises and contradictions by transferring them onto subordinated regions and peoples. Growth of this kind temporarily stabilizes capitalist accumulation, but exacerbates the global structural inequality that actually drives cycles of violent conflict, economic dependency, and social collapse. The material form of imperialism is the state and the military, because economic dominance needs to be secured through some means, such as political and military enforcement. which is the most common of those methods. Military forces, strategic alliances, and geopolitical interventions of imperialist states serve to access resources, maintain spheres of influence, and suppress anti-imperialist proletarian struggles. According to this perspective, the state is an essential tool of imperialist capital, which uses it to wage wars, occupations, and regime changes whenever necessary for capital. For the purpose of imperialism, such a capitalist state nexus marks the essence and hallmark of imperialism, rooted in such ever-present predisposition for brute force and coercion. But is there a relation of imperialism to global proletariat? Of course there is a relation between the proles and imperialism. There is always a connection to the proles in some way. Imperialism, more than anything else, conditions the fate in terms of opportunities and constraints of the global proletariat. It divides the working class by nationality, race, ethnicity, sexuality, or whatever. Moreover, the world working class is divided into privileged slices of workers in imperialist provinces and billions of poor masses in the peripheries. This represents the West and the South, or the global North and the global South, or the West and the East. These masses in those poorer peripheries, which I mentioned, are super exploited with all kind of racialized, gendered, unstable labor regimes. Left communism and early Leninism critiques reformist and nationalist responses, as those do not get beyond the divisions. True working class internationalisms must presume the obsolescence of all national industries and the unification of proletarians around the world in a common struggle against global capitalist imperialism. There is also the thing that anti-imperialism and left communist internationalism are requirements for progress. I repeat, those are requirements, not mere options. Bourgeois nationalism and statist populism are both rejected by left communism and early Leninism alike. Imperialism will never be uprooted without the overthrow of capitalism. From this perspective, anti-imperialism is not merely a call for socialist countries to defend national sovereignty in the age of nation-states, but a call for socialist revolution everywhere as part of a global challenge to end capitalist and social relations everywhere. Left communist and early Leninist internationalism is the self-management of the proletariat, freed from national, racial, ethnic, or otherwise divisions, with federated councils, workers as communes, and global solidarity and production. Imperialism will never be defeated except through this internationalist reconstitution. Imperialism is a sign of the decline of capitalism and the emergence of capitalist crises and the emergence of revolutionary spirit therethrough. Imperialism too is a symptom of the historical decay of capitalism, just like fascism. It is a symptom of the incapacity within the system to maintain anything like proper, stable, and equitable social relations within its own territory, so it becomes forever searching for outside outlets, some other outside exploitable source, some other place, some other region to control. It creates a sharp manifestation of acute contradictions that provide opportunities for revolution through the creation of oppression. In times of oppression, in times of bad conditions, there is a chance for revolutions. This was seen after 2 world wars. In both cases, after World War I, the socialists were strong, so the socialists in Italy and Germany. So what was done? imperialist ethnic parties, bourgeois parties, were introduced. The National Fascist Party in Italy, and the National, and that's what they called themselves, but they were no way socialist, since they had private property, the National Socialist Party of Germany, because there was revolutionary spirit and this had to be prevented. So they created those two parties to suppress the revolutionary spirit via stupid nationalism and other separationisms. Imperialism, as I said, is a sign of the decline of capitalism, and imperialism too is a symptom of the historical decay of capitalism. That's what I said twice or thrice, and it is a symptom of an incapacity also to uphold anything, to keep the production and proper production going, to keep the expansion of capital first and foremost going. Left communism has therefore always warned against illusions and nationalist and reformist leaders pretending to manage this imperialism and the results therefrom, the catastrophes which I mentioned. You cannot manage this, you can also not de-link from global capitalism, because genuine emancipation involves proletarian revolution, which overpasses the national states in order to destroy capital and disintegrate the imperialistic global system. So indeed, the highest stage of capitalist expansion and crisis, the global domination of capital in terms of economy, politics, society, and military might, or at least the threat thereof, is what I call imperialism in terms of my left-communist and early Leninist definition. This is a structural and systemic problem rooted in capitalist exploitation and class antagonism, international proletarian self-management, and in capitalism, abolishing all imperialist structures. This alone is able to secure true liberation for the working class around the world. Perhaps this is internationalism that differs fundamentally from all nationalisms and reformisms and state capitalism. It is fundamentally the real anti-imperialist horizon of the road forward. So this was my definition of imperialism, at least. This bore in it some aspects of Lenin's times of imperialism and some of my own thoughts, I may say. So you may introspect about this. Maybe you have other thoughts which you can surely comment in Instagram and YouTube. So yeah, I hope you like this video, and more educational content will come up. This is like basics. And yeah, have a good day, comrades.